There are no words really. We've got photographs, we took them, don't look at them, I know what they look like. It wasn't my little girl. He's, just said she was going to die. There was nothing we could do. And she died in my arms in bed with Alistair and I in the early hours of the morning on the 2nd of December. People look at a grieving mother and they think something bad happened. She has to live with that. That's it. But I really don't think that people fully appreciate it's all kinds of trauma.
Dry day and we're on.
Today our guest is Dr. Andrea McKeown. Thank you, Andrea, for coming on. And today, the show will be discussing a number of things. Obviously, bereavement, about your story, which is unbelievable. We'll be talking about trauma, mental health, and really the get to know about your story. So thank you, Andrea.
Pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrea. So, Andrea, I'd like at the beginning for you to tell us about your childhood, your family growing up. What was that like? And we'll start the story there, if you don't mind.
Okay. I'm from Birmingham originally. I have an older sister and grew up with my mum and dad and my sister. Pretty normal childhood. My parents were both from working class background, both aspired for my sister and I to be as good as we could be, and really proud when I became a doctor and I went to university. That was probably everything that they ever wanted for us. So really, really lovely childhood. Yeah.
And when did you move up to Scotland, Andrea?
So I moved up to Aberdeen in 1997. Chose the furthest university from my home, physically in the UK. So from that point was very much independent and do my own thing. Met my husband, didn't know him at first at Aberdeen doing medicine. I met him about 3 years into the course.
This is Alistair, yeah.
Alistair, yeah. Yes. He's also a doctor and from Edinburgh.
Good. So when you met Alistair, was the 2 years in the same kind of uni?
Yes, so both at Aberdeen, both in the same year in medical school.
Good.
Yeah.
So how was uni? How was uni life back then?
Yeah, I can't remember a lot of it. It was that good.
I bet you.
Had quite a few resits. I shouldn't be telling people this because they'll be like, "Is she a good doctor?" Had fun. I did an extra degree in the middle, so I was a student for 6 years. And Aberdeen was a nice place to be. It was big enough that you were somewhere interesting, but small enough that you weren't engulfed by a big city, and you kind of knew what was going on and knew everybody. And medicine's always a very kind of close-knit group. And we graduated, worked in Inverness for 6 months and back to Aberdeen for 6 months, and then we left to go down to England in about 2003.
So you went back to England.
Yes.
What was that for?
Well, we both felt that medicine's a funny world, and we could see that you train in Aberdeen, you might even have gone to school in Aberdeen, you become a doctor in Aberdeen, and I don't know, you might go to Australia for a year, but then you'll come back to Aberdeen. And I just said to Alistair, let's cast the net wide and leave. So we just applied for jobs all over the place and both ended up with jobs in the Northwest. And I did my paediatric training at Alderhay Hospital.
How long did it take you to get employment when you moved back to England then?
Oh, well, it was pretty much straight away because of the way medical jobs work. So you either go on rotations, which might be 3 years long, for example, moving from location to location within that, or they're fixed jobs, and you apply for those before you've finished the current placement that you're on. So it's relatively unlikely that within medicine you will have periods of unemployment because you usually go from one to the other.
There's always someone looking, and there's a lot of headhunting when it comes to that type of recruitment as well. So when were you and Alistair then married?
So we were married not long after we moved down to England. I remember saying to him, "You've got to put a ring on it because I'll live with you. I'll do all these things, but I'm not buying a house with you until we're married
Fully
and committed." And so that decision was almost made. I think he engaged to me before, asked me to marry him before we moved down to England, and then we were married in 2000. And I've got to get this right, otherwise I'll get into trouble.
Yes.
2005.
There we
Yes,
go.
in Chester.
In Chester?
Yes.
Good.
Big wedding or family?
There were about 75, I think.
Okay, quite big,
so-
yeah.
That is big.
Yeah, I think, as I recall.
I can't even remember how many it was at mine. A lot.
Yes.
I think there were a lot at mine as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Big weddings.
My in-laws treated us to a free bar for our birthday,
Wedding.
for our wedding, which I don't think they'll ever do ever again.
Do you remember what the bill was?
Oh, it was, I can't say.
Thousands of pounds.
Oh, well,
I think
no
I
doubt.
saw there was bottle of Jack Daniels. It was, yes.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, I was sober as a judge. I didn't drink at all during our wedding, so I remember it all. But lots of people don't.
Oh, I wish I'd stayed sober.
Fantastic, Andrea. Obviously, one of the reasons why we got you on the podcast, Andrea, was because you have an amazing story.
Yes.
Right. You do a lot of charity work. Obviously, there was a lot of sad loss. Though you had a right sad loss with your daughter dying when she was 2. But since the death of your daughter, you've done some amazing things. Obviously, this was one of the main reasons why. Well, basically, I kind of researched you, right, and I just stumbled upon your story, and I just kind of touched a chord for myself, and I gave it to Jordan.
Same with me.
So it's a sad story, but it's very empowering, your story. And I don't know how many times I've watched that video on YouTube, right? And every time I look at that video, I watch that video, I get sad myself, especially when you talk about your daughter Rebecca and the charity work that you and Alistair do, and obviously the team that work for Rebecca Rocks. So it's a very inspiring, touching story and very powerful. And we're so glad that you decided, or you said yes.
Well, thank you.
I would
you
like
for
to come onto the
inviting me.
podcast.
Yes.
What made you decide to come on the podcast? Obviously, Darren's called you out the blue and spoke to you. You don't know the Devlin brothers from Adam. So why did you decide to come on with us?
I live in the south of Glasgow and drive to Irvine for work every day, so I listen to audiobooks. I'm fed up of the news, and it's nice to just... and I started listening to Rob Delaney's A Heart That Works, and Rob Delaney is an actor who has an equally tragic story and so many similarities to Rebecca. Listening to the book was this mixture of absolute heart-wrenching pain and almost an exhilaration that someone else is saying the same things that are in my head. And around that time was when I met Darren. And the way that Rob talks about the raw emotion that he carries around all the time, and the urge to just want to tell people all the time, this is what happened to my son, really, struck a chord with me. And when we sat and had our chat, I just kind of felt like this was the right time to talk. I've also started a job within medicine where childhood trauma and these things are all very, very relevant. And again, just that recognition that we don't talk enough. We don't tell people what we've been through and how that makes us feel. And you don't need to be opening your heart to every stranger on the street, but I think we as a culture and a society expect people to put a lid on it.
I think
And I don't think it's healthy.
No, it's not.
No.
Absolutely. Obviously, myself and Jordan, we've had our mental health struggles over the years. But we don't talk about it 100%.
Not enough. I think over the last few years, I'm more open. I think with the people, I think with mental health, when you start working on yourself a lot more, Andrea, you'll know the people that you start meeting and that come into your life, that things happen for reasons. I totally believe that the people are a lot more open, and you feel as if I speak a bit more when I'm out in my cold water. With people that are the same, but we definitely don't talk enough about it, without a doubt, and that's a big part of why we started doing the podcast and decided that this is what we want to do, and to give a bit back and let people tell their stories. So, if you don't mind, Andrea, could you take us through your story about your beautiful Rebecca?
Yes. Where to start? So we moved back to Scotland when I was about 7 months pregnant with Rebecca. New jobs, new house, new city.
New jobs again.
Yeah, new jobs again. I was working in York Hill and probably only did about 6 weeks because I went off on maternity leave on the Friday. And Rebecca was born on the Saturday, so I didn't have much of a maternity leave. She was born. It was lovely. And 2 weeks later, my dad died suddenly of a heart attack, which was it was just awful. It was horrendous. Again, to it's be an overriding kind of theme, I think, to what I'm going to say today is that this mixture of all the emotions at the same time, that you can feel joy that you've just had your first child born and she's healthy and beautiful, and also, you know, the sadness that your dad's died at 66 and got to meet her once. And so I spent my maternity leave grieving and, you know, looking after a young baby. I went back to work. I was on a medical training scheme, so your job would move every 6 months, but you had a job for 4 or 5 years, kind of thing. And I went back to a really busy job on a neonatal ward, so where premature babies are born, and the maternity unit, and I just felt like I needed some stability. And this job no week was the same. 1 week you'd be on nights, the next week it was a day and a weekend, and it just was all over the place. And I said to Alistair, do you know what? I don't want to do this. I want to be a doctor, but I want to get off the wheel. So I left, much to many people's absolute amazement, I left the training scheme and decided to knock on the door of Dr. Pat Carragher in Robin House and say, do you fancy giving me a job? To which they said yes. So I then became the first kind of resident doctor for Robin House, which is a children's hospice in Balch run by Chaz. And in that time, it seems that every time I start a new job, I get pregnant. I was pregnant with Samantha. And this was over the late stages of my pregnancy were over the kind of the summer months, and it felt like every couple of weeks we'd be going to the GP or A&E out of hours with Rebecca with these temperatures that couldn't quite get to the bottom of, and they'd say, oh, it's a tonsillitis, and we'd be like, but I'm a paediatrician, she's not got tonsillitis, and we'd be waiting on urine samples or, you know, something to try and find out why she had a temperature, and then it would go away again, and we'd move on, and didn't really put all these things together. And then in September, Samantha was born, another early birth, not horrendously early, but early. And I'll never forget the day that, you know, I'd had the baby and everyone came to the hospital to see you as they do. And I remember seeing Rebecca, and she'd got a really hot hospital like they always are. She got tights and cardigans, and she'd been dressed by my mum, so she was all like bundled up. But I was like, she's got a temperature.
You know.
And from that point, she never really got better. So we had 2 weeks at home with the newborn, temperature, vomiting in the morning. Occasionally, when she had a high temperature, she wouldn't quite speak properly, which when kids have temperatures, they get a bit delirious. You know, sometimes knowledge is an evil thing, and we kind of like, well, you know, we just were like, well, she's got something, it will get better. And we had the distraction of the baby. And it was, you know, hectic. And then we got to the point we'd been into A&E and sent home. We'd been to out of hours, sent home. And we took her in 2 weeks later, and she was admitted. And this was the time when swine flu was about. So they joked, oh, she's probably...
Sorry, can I ask you,
yes.
But when Samantha was born, how long was that before?
So it'd be two weeks.
2 weeks,
so,
right, okay.
Yeah.
Did you make it like an appointment with the GP in that time in the 2 weeks before?
No, I think by that point we'd kind of exhausted the GP and felt... I don't want to GP bash, but you know, what was the point? Because again, I knew she's got a temperature. We don't know the reason for it. Therefore, she needs blood, the urine sample, blah blah blah. So there's really no point me going to the GP for them to, you know, to tell me what I already knew. Mm-hmm. So 2 weeks after Samantha was born, Rebecca was admitted and was put down as what's called a pyrexia of unknown origin. So there are certain things you look for when a child has a temperature for a long time and you can't find a reason for that. Certain kinds of bacterial meningitis can cause things like that, and TB can, and there's there's a whole list of things, mostly all very rare. Sometimes even arthritis can put kids like that. So they really didn't know what was going on. And we kind of, I think every part of your body just wants to convince yourself that they're getting better. And at one point we thought the temperatures were maybe settling, she's getting better. And then, so Alistair would stay with her at night and I would come home with Samantha. And then Alistair called, it must have been about 10 o'clock one night. She's going for a CT scan. Something's not right. And from that point, it really just all went downhill. And she ended up having a CT scan that showed she had lots of fluid on the brain, and was transferred to, because York Hill was in a different site then, so she was transferred to the Neurosciences Institute at the Southern, which is now the Queen Elizabeth, where they had to put in a tube into her brain to try and drain off this fluid. And then eventually we they did enough tests and found out that she had meningitis caused by tuberculosis. So we spent 2 months, I think, in the institute. The way it works is you have an external tube that drains off the fluid, and then they try and internalise it. So the tube, you have a shunt that goes down, so the fluid drains off and down into your neck. And every time they tried to internalise it, it would block off, so they'd have to externalise it again. And we thought we were getting somewhere, and we got transferred back to York Hill for rehabilitation.
So at that stage, you thought things are looking a bit better? At
that point, she couldn't. I mean, I think one of the saddest moments was in the hospital. The only word she ever really said throughout the entire 2-3 months that she was unwell was she saw me holding Samantha and she said, "Baby sister." And I think those were the only words she actually said in that time, because she was just, she loved princesses and pink things and dancing and singing and so the opposite to her sister. It was just awful. But again, you're told, the operations have worked. Yes, she's not coming out of this unscathed, but let's get you back to the hospital for rehabilitation. So you hope everything's going to be all right. And I remember getting to the stage and saying, okay, she's not going to be all right, but she's here. I'll give it my job. I'll do anything, for her. I'll be, the mum that I've seen in all my jobs who looks after the disabled child. That's in my head what I had coming to me. And then, so many things happened, so many complications. And she had a final MRI scan just to see how things were going. And that was late afternoon, one evening. And the next morning, it was the first time they'd let both Alistair, well, not both, the three of us, Alistair, myself, and Samantha, stay in the hospital room overnight, because the way we had done it was Alistair was always in at night. I would kind of come in and let him, just rotation. So I'd sit with Samantha in the room during the day, and then I'd go home. And I don't know if they knew or what, but they let us all stay in the room. And then at 7:30, one of the doctors, who wasn't our kind of main doctor, but he'd obviously been worrying and had got up and looked at her scan, and he came in and said it's worse than it's ever been, and left. And we were like, well, what do we do with that? So we spent that day literally pacing the floor. Can someone come and talk to us? Eventually our actual kind of named doctor came and said, we could try to operate again, but it would be futile.
So how many operations was that Rebecca had then?
So she must have had 4, I think, which was 2 of the outside shunts and 2 of the inside ones. And he's, just said she was going to die. There was nothing we could do. And I knew, and he said, "Well, where do you want to go? What do you want to do?" And instantly said Robin House.
And tell us again what Robin House is.
So Robin House is the children's hospice that I worked in.
Right, that you gave up your training course to go and work. Right,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And within a couple of hours we were there, but I've said this so much. It felt like we were in. I'm going to date myself now. It felt like we were in an episode of ER. The weather was. It couldn't have been more representative of how we felt. It was the end of November. In fact, it was probably almost exactly to the day today, actually.
Wow.
It was the end of November. It was rain, pitch black, wind, those horrible November days. And as we left the hospital, it almost felt like people were lining the corridors to say goodbye. Because everyone knew who we were. She was the daughter of the doctors. I'd worked there, not for very long, but people knew us. They knew this sad story, and then the ambulance drive. Say, in those kind of dark, horrible conditions when you're in an ambulance and you can't see anything, but you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ambulance got lost, and I had to direct them around the back country roads to get there, and then we arrived, and you talk about the video on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I think I say then it was like, for a start, it was silent. There wasn't a beep. There wasn't a. you know, we'd been institutionalised for months with all the sounds of hospitals, and suddenly it was just peaceful. And there was one of the staff with a big umbrella underneath a light, and you could see like the rain coming down through the light, and it was like a big, I don't know, a big hug, a bit, you know, it was just calm and safe. And we knew it was the right place to be. And we were there for a week. And the silly little things like all the practical stuff that you're having to juggle when you're in the hospital, and we were helped amazingly by our families. But you still have to eat. You still have to. I mean, I used to sleep in the coffee room in the institute. Maybe no one knew. I thought no one knew because they wouldn't let Alistair and I both stay in the room. So I would pretend.
Why was that?
Just health and safety and all that kind of stuff. So I would pretend I'd gone home, but actually I was asleep in the coffee room with Samantha. All of a sudden, someone was cooking for you. They were doing your laundry. I think at one point I had a sore shoulder, and one of the, you know, they have all kinds of staff in the hospice came and kind of gave me a massage, and they put a double bed in the room so that we could all just be there. We used the hydrotherapy pool. We were given a wheelchair type buggy where we would walk in Ballard Country Park, and we had a week, and then she died in my arms in bed with Alistair and I in the early hours of the morning on the 2nd of December. And yeah, it was well, there are no words really. And we've got photographs. We took them. We don't look at them. I know what they look like. It wasn't my little girl. And it feels so long ago, but like it was yesterday as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you had 1 week with Rebecca. So obviously at that point, she never had any tubes or anything. It was just a case of there's going to be a certain time that she'll just pass away.
Yeah.
That's why you had the freedom. You could go to the country park and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's even though it's a tragedy. I mean, I couldn't even imagine a child of mine dying so young or period. So you've got a lot of mental strength for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just heartbreaking. Just young people dying. It's not right.
No,
that's not right.
Yeah, it's not meant to work that way.
No, it's not. No, and it's just it's upsetting. I feel like I want to cry. You know that.
The thing the story that's got me, like Robin House sounds like the most amazing place. The way they've welcomed you, and especially in that night, which was stormy, as you said. If they were away making you and Alistair, the weather, how you felt, that was it. And for the welcome as soon as you went in. So that week, you must treasure that week that you had in Robin House.
I do and I don't. It was the way it was meant to be. And for her, it was peace. Whatever she was feeling, whatever she could hear, or she had painkillers, she had a mum and dad, and she didn't have the noise of the hospital, and there were some beautiful moments.
What was your special moment in that time, Andrea? You had with Rebecca at Robin's house.
There was they have a wee. Oh, they change every time I go. They've changed the rooms, but they did have a library that looked out onto the garden, and We have an affinity with robins. I think lots of people do, but all of a sudden they mean everything. I always used to find, when I was thinking of years and years ago, and I was thinking of an auntie that died, that there'd be a robin. When I used to walk to exams, there'd be a robin. You know, if you look for them, you'll find them. But there were robins coming. It's why it's called Robin House. There's lots of robins there. But there were robins coming to the glass window, and at one point there was this beautiful rainbow. And she, you know, I think she was in my arms at the time on like a sofa, and it's really hard to put into words what those moments were, because they're both beautiful and disgusting at the same time. And you almost can't. It feels perverse to say they were beautiful, magical moments, because there were points, the last minutes of her clock that was ticking down. So, yeah, it's hard to be able to. Although it was perfect, it shouldn't have been happening at all. So, yeah.
How did see when Rebecca died, she passed away? Mm-hmm. How was your relationship with your husband at that time? And your immediate family?
Yeah. Well,
Samantha.
Having worked in Robin House before and after Rebecca died, you do see the effects that having a sick child can have on relationships, and I don't know of any studies or, you know, anyone who's counted, but it seemed like there were a lot of couples that had split up because it's stressful and life is stressful, and you add on this kind of stuff and it could destroy people. I never once felt like that with Alistair. We've always been a partnership. We'll always be a partnership. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses and bounce off each other. So it was, well, we have a unique bond and a unique experience that neither of us wanted, but that's what it is. Our families were amazing. My sister had a high-flying job in London, and she took leave for probably about 6 weeks, 2 months.
Amazing. To
help my mum, who'd come up, because obviously I couldn't look after Samantha all the time. So, you know, they were there. It was just amazing. Alistair's mum and dad live in Edinburgh. And every day Alistair's mum would get on the train, come over with bags and bags of Marks and Spencer sandwiches. I can never, it's the things
you remember.
that you remember, and the things that trigger you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't look at knives. Rebecca had her second birthday in hospital, and we'd ordered a cake from Marks and Spencer's beforehand, and it was all paid for, it was all there, and I just said to my sister, "Oh, do you know what? Just pick it up, bring it in. The nurses can eat it. We can sing happy birthday to her, you know." And my mum brought in a knife from home, quite an expensive knife from home, and just left it in the coffee room. And I was like, "Mum, you can't just leave sharp knives in a hospital." And it went. We never saw it again. And every time I look at a serrated Sabatier knife, I have it's a total trigger. And I remember the faces of the nurses that day when I was saying, "Oh, have some cake," and it was almost like they didn't take any cake, and I felt like they were thinking, "How the hell can we celebrate this birthday?" There was an awkwardness. I think they thought I was probably slightly delusional. I was probably just being pragmatic. Here's some cake, have some. But they could see the symbolism of it almost. so there's lots of things that trigger you, that put you off, and they're not the things you would think they would be. And I'm sure you two can empathise with that. They blow you over when you didn't know the wind was coming.
Demobilise you.
Yeah, they just hit you like that.
Yeah.
Your triggers, it's just...
And that's the thing, and there's triggers come from Marks and Spencer's, knives, like Christmas for me is a big trigger. There's different things, but it's about the tools that we have in the locker now on a daily basis to try never stop the triggers from happening. That's why they're triggers, but it's very important to be able to have the tools in the lockers to be able to cope with them or deal with them, so you can still be the best version yourself, or try to be the best version yourself on a daily basis. Very interesting to know, Andrea, obviously one of the most devastating things to happen with Rebecca. What, after Rebecca passed, I know that you did a bit of charity work. I know running, you never ran, and I know, so talk to us, what was your kind of day-to-day routines? How did you... I know running was a big help. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
So I did my first ever run in my entire life. I think it was a couple of days after she died, from Robin House, in not running gear. I had been in a hospital box of one form or another for so long. I'd not seen the season come. I'd not seen autumn go into winter. I'd not seen colour. I'd not smelt fresh air. And I just had this urge to run.
Forrest Gump moment.
Yeah.
Good.
And my good friend Lynn, she'll want me to say she ran the New York Marathon.
Well done, Lynn.
Yeah.
Well done, Lynn.
Well done, Lynn.
Came over to Robin House, and we just went for a run, and it kind of took it from there. When we got home, we had a young baby, and she gave us a reason to be happy and not guilty, to smile for innocent, beautiful reasons, and very much the routine of any mum, really. Alistair had gone back to work in the kind of January time. And yeah, I've never ran like massive distances, but just built up to my first 10K for the women's 10K. I remember I'm not very good at training, especially not with food, and had a munchie box before my first 10K. So that was my kind of carb loading
overload.
That was you. You were carbing up for the run. I like it. I like it.
But a 10K. You know.
There we go.
And for both of us, for Alistair and myself, exercise suddenly became a huge part of our lives, and still is. I think because I was probably naively happy until that point. I don't remember looking in the mirror and going, am I fat, am I thin, am I healthy, am I not? I never felt the urge or the need. I never quite understood why people exercised until I became sad.
It definitely helps.
Yeah, it does help, yeah.
100%. And that's what I'm saying. Recently I've not been able to kind of train over the last couple of weeks, and it just flings you out. It's another challenge completely. Yeah. And it's great that you had that and able to turn it that. So you mentioned that you'd done a few runs.
Yeah.
So what was your first run? Was it the 10K?
So we did a few 10Ks. I signed up Alistair, my sister and brother-in-law, who are immensely fit, and a few other people, to a 10K in London from Ham Palace along the river, to which they were really pleased about that. I think I got into trouble quite a bit. And And so many people started doing, things, triathlons and all sorts of runs. And Lynn ran the New York Marathon.
Well done, Lynn.
Yes, well done, Lynn. Loads of stuff. I did a half marathon, which was probably about as far as I'll ever run, I think. And the first year we raised about 25,000, and that just went straight to Chaz. And we were quite happy to just give it straight to Chaz.
Yeah.
We had no input as to where that went. It probably went on boring kind of bricks and mortar stuff, and that was wonderful. But we knew we were going to carry on, and we wanted something that was more in her memory, more. When I say important, I understand that charities have to have the boring bricks and mortar money, but something that was just special, and that's where Rebecca Rocks came from. So we don't have a separate charity for Rebecca Rocks. We both knew we're busy people. We've got 3 kids, and actually running an official charity would take away money, because not every penny raised, therefore, you have to go into to running it, and a lot of time. And we wanted this to be sustainable. So Chaz have been amazing, and our money is essentially ring fenced. So when we fundraise, it goes to Chaz. They know it's for Rebecca Rocks, and that goes to buying the music, the tickets for gigs, events for the kids and their families. And
So
their
tell us a bit more about Rebecca Rocks.
So we raise the money. We give it essentially to a fabulous lady called Ailey, who's the activities coordinator in Robin House. And she keeps her ear out and tells people about Rebecca Rocks and asks them, what do you like to do? And then literally goes and buys tickets on the computer, prints them out and says, there you go.
Wow.
You're off to see Drake. Or I think that was a really special one, the Drake. She told us about a little boy, or a big boy, who unfortunately was writing a bucket list, and Drake was on there. And she left the room, did what I've just said, printed out VIP tickets to Drake, and came in and said, there you go, you're going off to Drake.
Is this for only kids within Scotland, or is this
this is
national
for,
ones?
This is for kids who use Robin House, which is part of Chaz, and it's the west coast part of Chaz. So there is also Rachel House on the east. We would like to be a little bit bigger so that we could say it's for all of you.
Yeah.
But we don't feel we're quite at that level yet with fundraising to be able to. We feel like we would be diluting what we can do by spreading it thin.
Yeah.
So it pulls at my heartstrings that we only choose one of the 2 hospices, and they also have hospices at home where the nurses go out and do community work for the kids. But we would very much like to be able to increase our fundraising so that the kids on the east can access this stuff as well, because there is no budget for this. Right. If it wasn't for the money we raise, the kids wouldn't go necessarily to all the concerts and the pantomimes and make these beautiful memories that are, they're finite. There's only so many memories you can make in these circumstances, and we don't pick. We just give Ailey the money and she spends it, because we think that's the best way, and it's beautiful.
How much money have you raised? How much has Rebecca Rocks raised in total?
We're on about
so far?
130,000 now.
130. And when was it established?
2010-ish.
Okay.
Good.
So it's been going for quite a long time, 12 years.
And we don't, gig tickets are getting obscenely expensive, but we don't need millions. It'd be nice, but if you think about paying for a family of 4 to go off to a pantomime, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of money. So we will try and do one biggish event every year, and we roughly raise between 10 and 20,000 for those one events, and the rest is we sell Christmas jumpers. Other people fundraise. So many people in the kids' schools have done wonderful things. My sister-in-law did an Ironman last year.
Wow.
All sorts of stuff. Yeah.
And for anybody that would like to get involved, we'll have links and everything available for the charity and stuff.
Thank you.
At the
That'd
show,
be wonderful.
which would be amazing.
Yeah.
So the kind of that is amazing. The Rebecca Rocks, and why have we called it Rebecca Rocks?
I think I was running at the time. It just came to me that Alistair likes lots of interesting music, and that's kind of the rock element,
Yes.
I suppose, and it's an alliteration, and it can mean two things at the same time, and it just seemed right.
Seems
The right thing,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, because obviously she loved music, so she
Yes.
said
Did you
Rebecca, so
mention
she
that?
did. Yeah. I mean, it was
it was quite fitting.
yeah. She was lovely. Loved dancing. We went to Lanzarote when she was about 9 months old, and you know the kids' entertainment they put on.
Yes. Kids Club.
Yeah.
Disco.
She must have been older than 9 months, but she was walking, but only just. And she would pull us onto the stage every night, and you'd have to stand there, and you'd try and sit down, and back you'd
Back
go,
up.
in her little Ramones t-shirt.
Oh.
Yeah, she loved it.
Amazing memories.
Brilliant songs. See when it comes to the fundraising, how can people get involved in that?
So we don't have a website, but we do have Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I think our handle on all of them is at Rebecca Rocks. No, it's not. It's at Rebecca Rocks Chaz. I'm right, Rebecca Rocks Chaz. So they just need to contact us. As I say, all that's required is fundraising for Chaz, and for Chaz to know this is special Rebecca Rocks money. And we're so grateful for not just our family and friends who consistently every year, give us money or get involved, whether it's we went at Ben Nevis this year at midnight.
Or the New York Marathon.
Or the New York Marathon then. We've done firewalks, abseiling off the Forth Road or Rail Bridge. I can never remember which one. I didn't do that one. So, we always try and do stuff that is relatively easy, that you don't have to prepare that much for, because we feel that, the firewalk was brilliant because there was nothing you could do for that but turn up. There was no prep. There was nothing.
Did you do that?
I did that. That was, I have to say, it wasn't that bad. And we got politicians involved doing it.
Wow.
And no, that was
Cool.
It was really good. And each time we do something, I feel like our little kind of community gets that little bit bigger.
You get any up and coming events before the end of the year?
Nothing is planned. Every year we have a festival at Robin House only for the families. So it's an absolute privilege that we're allowed to go and see. Amazing. And we Ailey, who is amazing, sets the place up like a festival, and they have like food stalls and bands to get in, and some fabulous bands that some of them play every year. This year we did meet, and I hope they're listening because I'm going to say it now. I've forgotten their name. Oh, that's terrible. Something Phoenix, a band, and they're really big. And we met them at an awards ceremony, and they're
Scottish,
coming.
or
They're Scottish, and I can't remember the name. Isn't that dreadful?
I've never heard Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix, something Phoenix. Anyway, they're really good, and they have promised that they're going to headline, so that'd be really good. So we have that every year, and we haven't decided what our big event this year will be. Well, 2023 will be, yes.
Okay, cool.
So any ideas on a postcard?
Can I take it back just slightly to the mental health side of thing? How's your mental health been since the passing of your daughter, and up to the present time as well? Because obviously Rebecca died in 2009. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, up and down. I had been when my dad died and I went back to work and I said I'd left the scheme, I suffered depression then. So I knew what that felt like. But I think this is slightly different. We talked about Rob Delaney's book, and he talks, the words I have used, I think he says something like grief puts a hole in your head, and that just wipes out memories before and after. So my memories are strange, most definitely. I have triggers, fireworks. I stood in the Institute with Rebecca in her bed on fireworks night, watching the panoramic skyline of fireworks going off, and I felt at the time, this is my world exploding. Mm-hmm. And every time, I can't go to fireworks, I just can't do it. And I want to run and hide, and I hate it. Knives, M&S sandwiches, all these little things. The smell of autumn, the changing of the light, dates. I'm constantly, for my work, writing a date, and between September and December the 2nd, that date reminds me of something.
Yeah.
And every time, every year, it takes a few steps to go, oh, yeah, that was the date of the 3rd operation, or that was this, that was when you moved from this hospital to this, or that's when you moved to Robin House. And I think that's what frustrates me in terms of mental health, is that you would think if it happened once and then it happened again and then it happened again, you would be prepared. But you never are. There's no amount of times that you can go through these feelings and for the next time it happens for them to be slightly better. And this lie that time heals, it's just nonsense. It's just something that people say because it makes them feel better, and it fills space. It doesn't heal. It doesn't go away. All that happens is for us, we had 2 years of memories with Rebecca, and they're the same. The photographs are the same amount. Nothing has moved on, but the world gets bigger and further away. And I look back at photographs and think there should be more. Why are there the same amount of photographs there were the last time I looked? And it's because the clock stopped.
Yeah.
It's gone.
That day she passed away.
Yeah.
Did you ever receive counselling at all, Andrea?
I've seen lots of counsellors over the years. The best work I've done probably is the work I've done with myself.
Mm-hmm. And what's that?
I think acknowledging that it's okay to constantly want to tell people, you've no idea what my life is like. You have no idea what it's like to literally put your 2-year-old daughter in a coffin. And I'm not belittling other people's problems, far from it. But I think people look at a grieving mother and they think something bad happened. She has to live with that. That's it. But I really don't think that people fully appreciate, and it's all kinds of trauma, that it changes the person who you are and who you become. I'm not Andrea of 2009. I'll never be Andrea of 2009. I'm happy, I'm content, I have the most wonderful family, the most wonderful kids. I have a warm home and I've got food to eat and a job. But I'm not Andrea McKeown of 2009. She's gone. She's not coming back.
Do you miss her?
Yes. I think she was very naive. I don't think she knew really what the world was about, but ignorance is bliss, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I'm a better person in so many ways, but very complicated and not what people see on the surface. I don't think people really know me.
Do you only just give certain parts of your life? I'm a bit like that.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of person who holds a lot of information and doesn't tell people about it, or I just drip feed them.
It's tricky with me because as soon as you start talking to a stranger, they either ask, how many kids do you have? What do you do for a living? Well, probably those two questions actually when it comes, And for so long, I took 10 years out of medicine and did lots of other things, worked in politics and in lobbying and did other stuff. So I was always this other strange person who didn't quite fit in, and people would say, well, why aren't you doing medicine anymore? Or they'd ask, how many kids do you have? And I'd stutter because I have 4, but I have 3. So there was always a reason for Rebecca to be mentioned. So I could never quite hide, and I didn't want to hide. I'm not that kind of a person. I'm actually a very open, probably too open. How can I put it? But there was never any way for me to just really say what I wanted to say, which was, I'm going to swear, fuck off, you haven't got a freaking clue. You don't understand, so don't ask me about it. Because that's how angry you feel inside that this happened to me. And awful things happen to everybody. And I'm so aware, especially now with the job that I do, that we should all be trauma informed. We should all presume that people have been through the mill, and be kind and be compassionate and choose our words, appropriately. That's not being a snowflake. It's not being woke. It's just being a nice person.
Yeah.
And actually, when you start analysing how people talk, we all need to learn how to be better. But it doesn't change the fact that I feel angry, and I want to tell everyone how horrific it was. But I also don't want to tell everyone how horrific it was. I almost feel like there should be some disclaimer before you meet me.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you meet someone new, someone you don't know, and they ask the questions, do you have any children and that kind of stuff, what's your answer to them?
Probably depends on
who it is,
on the day and who it is, and whether I can, go through all this. It's a bit easier now I'm back in medicine because people don't ask, because I'm a doctor now. No one needs, no one knows I wasn't for a bit, so no one asks, so why are you not a doctor? Because I am. Mm-hmm. So it's easier at work. I feel like I'm not constantly having to tell a story. And again, it depends. I mean, I remember there was very early on, there was a lovely lady in John Lewis, and she saw me and Samantha as a little baby, and she's like, oh, she's beautiful. Have you got any other children? And I just didn't know what to say, and I said, yes, I have 2, but one's dead. And clearly she didn't know where to look. And it wasn't me trying to punish her.
No.
It's like you betray them if you don't talk about her. And of everybody in our family, I talk about her every day. And my husband does, but it's, I probably do. Other people don't. It's too hard. It's too hard for them to talk about her. And I'll never stop, I don't think.
And that's what's good about the charity. We'll never stop. Rebecca Rocks will continue.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this charity work. And we speak about memories. Even you were speaking about Rebecca, the memories with Rebecca, but then you start talking about the memories of the charity, which again is involving Rebecca, and it's still, and listen, nothing will ever take away the pain, no. But it's about being able to carry on to be the best version of yourself,
Yeah.
Andrea, for your family. And
And it's beautiful when we can witness it at the festival, and when we do get messages sometimes or photographs, and it won't take away that family's pain, but it is beautiful, and they really, really deserve as many happy memories as they can get, like we all do. But as I say, some people's clocks aren't ticking in the same way.
Yes. What kind of advice would you give to someone or a family who's going through what you and Alistair have went through?
It's okay to feel everything all of the time. You can feel sad, you can feel happy, you can feel angry, all at the same time. And the maybe maturity I now have, or wisdom, I don't know, being 10 plus years down the line, is that it is like that, the sea, the waves, and it's okay to have these thoughts and to feel them, but to allow them to wash over and wait for the next wave. I think I'd say to love each other, to talk about the person in mundane ways. It doesn't have to be big epic stories and crying or laughter or anything, but just have their name as part of your daily conversation. And I think, love each other and stick together, and friends and money and all these things are very important. But the people who you choose to have around you are so important. Hold them close and cherish and nurture and work hard to keep those relationships thriving.
Brilliant. That's quite powerful.
very powerful.
Powerful words.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Andrea, I don't know the word that I want to use, but I've been really moved by your story. It's just, as I said, I could not even imagine having a child die at a young age. So, 2, that's just, I always say it's not cricket. It's not, that should not happen. Mm. But the way you've came here to this studio and just basically bared your soul. And I love you speaking about Rebecca, because obviously when you actually speak about her, your face just lights up. Just beams that you were proud to be her mother. Even if it was only for 2 years, but you're a strong woman. You're a very,
amazing.
Very, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know about that. I think people used to say to me, "Oh, I don't know how you get out of bed in the morning. You're amazing. You know, how do you get on with life?" And we all do what we got to do, and there is no alternative, really. So I don't think it's strength. It's maybe displacement. I don't know.
It's amazing. It's strength. It's, as you said, it's the ability to be able to get up in the morning and move forward the way you have. It's incredible. It's incredible. And especially holding your family together and the kind of charity work and everything that you're doing and the things that you do on a daily basis and being able to, at this point, and you said that when the phone call came from Dan, it was the right time to come and speak about Rebecca, and hopefully this kickstarts continuing other things to happen, other talks, because it's an amazing story. And the fact that we spoke about it before, Andrea, when we were off the mic, that if this story you speaking tonight can help one family be able to love each other that bit more, to be able to listen to this and know that the emotions and the feelings that they're feeling is normal, the happiness, the sadness that you mentioned, and be able to give them the courage to keep moving forward. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Andrea. It's been an absolute privilege and an honour to have you as a guest in our podcast. Have you got any final thoughts, Jordy?
No, just I'm so grateful that you came, and hopefully friend for a long, long time now,
Absolutely.
which I'm sure it will be, and I'll be running with you, that's for sure, moving forward. But no,
all the links will be when the podcast goes out, and social media, all the links with Rebecca Rocks and Facebook, and if you've got Instagram, we'll also
supply
put
all the
them on.
links at the bottom.
Yeah. And if
When
there are
actual
any
record.
bands out there who want to
Yes.
come to Robin House and play at
Yeah.
our festival, and I will try and remember the name of the Phoenix people.
Okay,
We'll get that.
we'll get that. Right, Andrea, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, for now, I'm Daz ID,
I'm JD.
and we are
Real Ron Relevant. Thank you.